Hi Otters, and welcome back for another guided reading session. So today we're going to be looking at a different notable person. So last lesson we looked at Bessie Coleman, and today we're going to be looking at Katherine Johnson. It's slightly different today. So again, rather than giving you a text, there is a story called Counting on Katherine, but I found a YouTube video where a lady reads it to you. The link to this is on the website, so if you haven't watched it yet, it's about 7 minutes long. Have a go and watch it now, please. So now that you've watched the video, I hope you were paying attention because we're ready to move on and answer some of these questions. If at any point you're thinking, oh, I can't remember this, feel free to go back to the video and use that to help you with your answers. You can pause it on the right pages and see if you can read the pages of the story. So again, as always, quick start questions. You can have a go at all three on your own, or you can go through them one at a time with me. So if you're going to do them on your own, please pause now. So question 1, what was the only thing that Katherine didn't count? Now this was quite early on in the text. I'm going to give you a pause me whilst you have a look through it, because the first couple of pages tells us how she counted the steps to church and things like that. Right, so question 1, what was the only thing that Katherine didn't count? It was the stars in the sky, and she said you'd be a fool to count them because there were just too many. Question 2, what was Katherine's favourite subject? I think you could have all made a sensible guess at this one, and the answer was maths, so well done if you wrote down maths. And question 3, this question was spoken about halfway through the text, a bit later on, and it says, why did women do all of the calculations? So why did women do this and not the men? Right then, so if you haven't answered that question, pause me whilst you find the answer, or keep playing and I will tell you the answer. So why did women do all the calculations? It's because men thought that those jobs were boring and unimportant, so the men didn't want to do them, so the women did them instead. It was a different time then. Next up, vocab check. So there are lots of really good vocabulary in this story that we're going to go through and explain. So Katherine yearned to know as much as she could. That means she really wanted to do something. She longed to do it. She yearned to know as much as she could. Katherine's boundless curiosity. So I think you all know what curiosity means. It's when you're interested in something. But boundless means there was no limits to that. She never stopped being curious. She was always curious about something, even if she'd maybe found out some other information. She never stopped being curious. And back then, America was legally segregated. So legally, that's by law. So the law was that they had to be segregated, and segregated meant that white people and black people could not mix. Okay, so black people had to go to different schools, they had to ride, maybe have different jobs, or ride or stand or sit and wait in different places to white people. They were kept very separate to white people because white people at the time didn't want to share their space with black people. The number patterns that are the foundations of our universe. Okay, so the universe is what we live in. Okay, so it's all the planets and the stars and the solar system, and the foundations are kind of like the building blocks. So the thing that the foundations are like the building blocks of the universe. So without these, the rest of it couldn't happen. So she found the number patterns, okay, that help make sense of our universe. It says her patience paid off. So that means by waiting patiently, it paid off because she got what she wanted in the end. She got that job that she wanted. Katherine's reputation for accuracy got her promoted. Now, to be promoted is to get a better job or move higher up in your job role. Accuracy is being really specific. So in this case, it was about her maths. So her maths was often correct because she didn't make silly mistakes. She was really accurate. And her reputation is kind of like what people know of her. Okay, so lots of people knew about Katherine, and her reputation is what people thought of her and how she was perceived by others. And the last one, so there's lots of vocabulary for this text, is could the crippled spaceship make it to the moon? Now, crippled in this context is damaged spaceship, almost damaged I say beyond repair. It's not just like a little dink and a little dent. This was some severe damage caused. So yeah, that was a lot of vocab. So moving on, we're going to have a look at the individual thinking question. So we're going to write this answer down, and it's written in italics again, so that's slanted writing, and it says that she catapulted right past her brother. Now, what does the word catapulted tell us here? I'm going to give you a clue. It does not mean that she was put in a slingshot and flew past her brother. Okay, that is not what catapulted means. Pause me whilst you have a think and write down the answer, and press play when you're ready to move on. So in this context, catapulted meant she went past her brother quickly, and this time it's talking about her moving up through school because she skipped 3 grades, skipped 3 school years because she was so smart. So she flew past her brother. She moved up the school years very quickly. Again, we've got some more italics. So it says, by working night and day, he earned enough money to move the family to a town with a black high school. What can we learn about Catherine's father from this quote? So this is what her father did because Katherine wanted to keep going to high school. Pause me whilst you answer this question and press play when you're ready to move on. So you might have lots of different answers for this question, but I think they'd all be along the same lines. So it shows us how dedicated Catherine's father was to his family, really. He worked really hard. So you could say maybe he persevered, he was resilient, he was determined by working night and day. And you could also say how loving and caring he was, because he did this so his daughter could get a good education, so that he could better his family and look after them. So he was very caring and loving and looked after his family a lot. You might have a different answer, which would probably still be correct. I can't go through all of the possible answers, so make sure you're sending this in to me so I can have a look through it, please. Next question is a bit of individual thinking again. So this time it asks, what does NACA and NASA stand for? Now, both of these acronyms were mentioned in the story, roughly halfway through, and NACA was mentioned first. I would like you to find it from the text. Please don't cheat in Google. Okay, have a go at finding it in the story. It's a roughly halfway through the story where it tells us this. Pause me whilst you write down the answer and press play when you're ready to move on. So NACA stands for National Advisory Committee on Aeronautics, and then NASA was the they changed their name to, and that stood for National Aeronautics and Space Administration. That is what those two stood for. Next up, so partnered talk. It says, find evidence in the text that Katherine is highly intelligent. So again, you could have lots of different answers for this. So find evidence in the text that Katherine is highly intelligent. Pause me here whilst you think of the answer, and then press play when you're ready to move on. Right then, so you could have had lots of different answers in here, because there are lots of different places where it tells us how intelligent she is. So you could have mentioned maybe how she skipped 3 school years. Okay, so 3 school grades, so she moved up very quickly. Maybe mention how determined she was to go to high school. And then you could also mention how not only did she get the job that she wanted, but she was very well respected by her peers because she was so intelligent. She was relied upon by the astronauts. In fact, the astronauts wouldn't trust the electronic computers until Katherine had checked them, because they trusted her and knew how intelligent she was. They wanted her to check over all of the electronic computers first. You might have found something different to me, so please make sure you're sending it in. But that's a couple of examples that I was able to find in the text. Next question, we've got those italics again. And it says, even the Project Star astronaut refused to fly until Katherine okayed the numbers. So I just actually spoke about that briefly. So it says, what does this tell us about attitudes towards Katherine? And how was this different to general attitudes at the time? Okay, so first of all, it's a two-part question. What does this quote tell us about attitudes towards Catherine? And also, how is that different to general attitudes at the time? Pause me whilst you have a go and press play when you're ready to move on. So, you could have had something along the lines that attitudes towards Catherine, she's very well respected and trusted. Okay, everyone knew how intelligent she was, and she did a good job. Now, this was different to general attitudes at the time because black people were treated differently at this time. So, whereas Catherine was well respected in her job and she was trusted, and people went to her and they let her do a very high powered job, and this is different because in general black people were segregated against, they were discriminated against, and they were not treated well or equally or fairly, in fact, compared to how Catherine was treated. You might have worded this slightly different, which is absolutely fine, but something along the lines of that. I think we've got one more question and then we are done. We do. So solo work. Here we have another quote. So it's not been written in italics this time, but it's got those quotation marks. So I know it's come from the text. And it says, "You can count on me." This line is repeated through the whole story. Find the examples of it. What does it mean? And how did Katherine Johnson embody it? So you need to find the examples of it in the text. What does it mean? And how did Katherine Johnson embody it? Pause me whilst you answer that question and press play when you're ready to go through the answers. So it says it lots. I think the first time it mentions it is Catherine's dad says, "You can count on me." And then he goes and works really hard, saves some money up so they can move house and Catherine can go to high school. Now, in this context, it means that you can trust this person, you can put your faith in them, and that they're going to help you achieve whatever your goals were. So, for example, she trusted her dad, and he in turn helped her get to high school. And it says, how did Katherine Johnson embody it? Well, she did lots of amazing things. Okay, so the astronauts could count on her because her maths was correct and accurate. So all of her calculations were safe, which helped with their voyage. And also, you could perhaps look at how Katherine Johnson embodied it by breaking down that sort of barrier, those racial barriers that we've spoken about before, and for women as well as black people in her industry, and within the organisation of NASA. Again, you might have worded it slightly differently or have a slightly different answer because this is really subjective and it can just be your opinion as long as you've justified it nicely. Okay then, that's it from me today. Thank you for working so hard, and I will be back in a few days for our last notable person, and this time it's going to be all about David Attenborough. I'll see you in a bit. Bye.